The show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
How about some breaking news to kick off the show here on a Tuesday?
Okay.
Parker Thune, Grayson Singleton with you on Locked In. We talk OU football and recruiting for an hour every single weekday here on the Ref, the home of the Sooner fans. Oklahoma just got a commitment, Grayson Singleton. Oklahoma just got a commitment, and a big one. Out of nowhere, mind you. Daniel Odom, four-star wide receiver from the state of California, fresh off a weekend visit to OU, has locked in a pledge to the Sooners as of about 1 minute ago. Hello. That right there, and listen, here's where I wanted to start the show today, was the whole quarterback conversation in the 2026 class. The offer to Bo Bentley, his pending visits, what this was going to mean for Oklahoma, and whether they would keep Jaden O'Neal on board, whether they could keep Jaden O'Neal on board, whether there was a world where they could maybe fit two quarterbacks into this class. I'll tell you this much, Grayson. Daniel Odom doesn't commit to Oklahoma if Jaden O'Neal isn't 1,000% locked in with the Sooners, because Daniel Odom is a childhood friend of Jaden O'Neal.
Okay.
That is really helping drive the interest, or has been helping drive the interest from his end. I mean, why else does a top 150 player in the nation from the state of Cali commit to Oklahoma unless obviously the prerequisite is you got to have a good relationship with the coaching staff. And Emmett Jones is really, really good at his job, and we know this. But you almost always have to have a kicker with a kid like that. And the kicker in this case is the relationship with Jaden O'Neal. Daniel Odom was just in Norman on Saturday, and apparently he saw enough that he decided to shut it down. How about that?
What have I been saying all the time? Probably 3, 4, 5 times a week that I'm on these airwaves. Peer recruiting matters. This stuff matters between the kids that know each other. And I think you're spot on when you say this is a good indication as to whether or not Jaden O'Neal is going to stay committed. I think that with the out-of-nowhere nature of this commitment of Odom, I don't think that happens if he thinks Jaden O'Neal's not very sure if he's going to stay committed or not. I just don't think that happens. But the credit I want to give here, I want to give the credit to Emmett Jones here, because I said this yesterday, and I think it's worth repeating. Efficiency in recruiting matters because you have a finite amount of time, and no matter what institution you are, you have a finite amount of resources, and you have to be efficient with how you go about prioritizing and pursuing your targets. And you laid it out yesterday when you talked about the connections to connections with the guys that he goes out and gets. And he's done it again, pulling a rabbit out of his hat with just how unexpected this was. So I think there's a lot of good things around here, but I think the person we got to give flowers to start this show is one Emmett Jones.
I agree 1,000% with you, because absent Emmett Jones and the work he does relationally on the recruiting trail, this isn't happening. I don't think Daniel Odom is committing to Oklahoma solely because Jaden O'Neal is there. That's a contributing factor, certainly, yes, but with the other offers he has. And I got to go back and I got to see what Daniel Odom's top 6 was, because it was kind of a who's who. And so when Daniel Odom put his top 6 out, it consisted of the following programs. You had Oklahoma, you had Texas, you had Oregon, you had, who else here? Miami, Tennessee, and Washington. Those were the other schools involved with Daniel Odom. And moreover, the reason why this is particularly significant, Grayson, is not just because this kid's really talented and a phenomenal way to kick off the 26th class for Emmett Jones, but because you were able to lock him down this early. Yeah. Like, that in itself is impressive, because it's still January. We know Oklahoma's policy for commits. You lock in with Oklahoma, you're not going to any other schools. You're not taking any other visits. You're saying, I am done with the recruiting process. So for a top 150 player in the country to be willing to set it all aside, wrap up his recruitment, conclude the process in January, and jump on board with a program that just went 6-7, Grayson, that takes belief, and that's indicative of a very commendable collaborative effort by Jaden O'Neal and the Oklahoma staff to get this thing done.
This is a little bit of a facetious question.
Okay.
But when these guys commit, there's a reason I'm asking this question.
Okay.
Do they sign something that says that they're not going to go visit anywhere?
No, they do not.
Right. Whenever we bring this up, and you mentioned that it's early, do we really believe that he's not going to take visits anywhere else? We just did this a couple of months ago with Michael Fasusi. He's a top 150 player.
Uh-huh.
He's got Texas. He's got go through that top 6 again. He had Texas. He had
Texas, Washington, Tennessee, Miami, Oregon, alongside Oklahoma.
You think he ain't gonna take one of those?
Now that's the challenge.
And look,
right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And look, I get what your policy is. I get that you want to promote this. You want to promote this feeling of commitment and family and being committed to what you say. They're 17-year-old kids with options. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry if I don't care if I've already committed to Oklahoma. If Miami calls, I want to go get a free weekend in Miami and go to a game. I'm just saying. So there is that whole thing, and after what we did with Michael Fasusi, when he was committed and saying all the right things, and then he went to Austin, then he went to College Station. The whole policy of that, especially with players of that ilk, it just I don't know how much that's going to be applicable.
Let's see what the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line thinks. 405-651-3439. By the way, this hour of the show brought to you by Dorsey Jones Buick GMC. Worth the trek out to El Reno to do business with the folks at Dorsey Jones Buick GMC. Fantastic prices, fantastic staff, and half-price oil changes on Saturdays. A 580 listener asks, no more Mr. McComas? Where have you been the last couple of weeks, sir? Yes, as of, I believe, the very first week of January.
Yes.
It is now locked in with Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton. So, yes, Tyler McComas, you will hear his voice at 3 p.m. He is still doing the rush alongside Ted from 3 to 6. Yukon Bob says, Odom is big news. Angry Ronnie says, if I was a betting man, I bet he won't stay committed. Josh from the 405 says, this coaching staff shouldn't talk about commitment anymore. They cut ties when push comes to shove. Man, people's opinions are all over the place so far.
And this is good because because the number of contributing factors is all over the place. I mean, they did have to say, hey, Grayson Harris, go find another spot 3 days before signing day. The fact that that Angry Ronnie says, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet that he stayed committed. That's perfectly fair, given the society of college football today. I get it, and I think you are being wise to not say, oh my goodness, we're gonna get him. He's gonna be here 2026. Pump the brakes. You don't know just yet. But this is a good sign. This is good news.
Tommy on the text line says, wait, a couple other recruitments were not done after committing. Yes, I understand that. And that's not to say Daniel Odom won't take any more visits or he's going to be 100% done with the process. But what I'm saying is, like, that's the implication that a commitment to Oklahoma carries. Whether or not they end up following through on it is a different conversation. And ultimately, Michael Fasusi probably doesn't take those late visits to Texas and Texas A&M if Oklahoma has success in 2024. Instead, they go 6-7. And so the circumstances moving forward, I think, are going to dictate whether this commitment ends up sticking, whether there's any additional drama. Commitments are commitments, and especially in the NIL, the money era, commitments in some people's minds, perhaps rightly, don't mean a whole heck of a lot until you see the name on the dotted line and they're being officially announced as a signee of the program. Josh Moore says it's hard enough for 17-year-olds to commit to a relationship, let alone a school.
That doesn't go away anytime soon either.
Is that a subtweet? Are you subtweeting anyone?
No, I mean, I've been through college. I saw it plenty of times. Sooner Soldier on the text line. Kids are going to take visits just for the fun of it and get treated like a rock star if they are interested or not. That's my whole point. Is that those OVs are a time of your life for a weekend. You get to go to parties that you otherwise wouldn't go to, get access to a lot of people you otherwise wouldn't have access to. Why would you pass that up, regardless of your interest level? So 17-year-old me would not have.
832 Mike says, all the top schools being Texas, Miami, Oregon, Tennessee that are wanting to pay Odom, that want Odom will pay more than us, so good luck keeping him. On the heels of that, a very accurate text from a 918 listener. Sooner Nation can't be happy about anything. Goodness gracious, man. Isn't that the truth? You sift through the text line right now, and yeah, there are some positive, some joyful reactions to Daniel Odom's commitment. But Oklahoma lands a top 150 player in the country, and people are going, well, he's not going to stick.
But also, here's the thing, and this is human nature, Parker. You get enough negative things that happen to you in a given time period, you start to expect the negative things. So I think the people are being cautiously optimistic right now. I think they are happy, but the emotion that they're going to express is going to be a little bit more negative and not reflective of what actually is going on in the heart.
Reformed Sooner says, if you can continue to recruit at a high level and your culture is good along with coaches who can develop, the wins will come. Be patient. Give BV 2 more years. Glenn from Nashville says, in this day and age of a revolving door to the transfer portal, I'm not sure it's imperative that once a kid commits to OU, he no longer takes a visit elsewhere. That said, if they're willing to shut it down, so much the better. And again, to kind of bring this conversation back to the original topic therein, man, I know there's been a lot of talk about whether or not the offer to Bo Bentley means that Jaden O'Neal's looking around or Oklahoma doesn't even want Jaden O'Neal the way that they once wanted him. I think this pretty definitively answers where things stand between Oklahoma and Jaden O'Neal, because the offer to Bo Bentley happened on Friday. Jaden O'Neal was in town on Saturday helping recruit for the Sooners at their junior day. And now here we are 3 days later, and one of his best friends, from the state of California, mind you, is committing to play alongside him at Oklahoma. And so none of this has played out as though Jaden O'Neal's commitment to Oklahoma is in any active jeopardy.
Here's my question to you, since you bring that up. What made Oklahoma go out and offer Bo Bentley? Because the way you just described it, and I could be totally wrong here, but this is just my interpretation of it. Did they offer him as an insurance policy?
No, they offered him because of October 8th, 2022. Do you remember what happened that day?
Can't say that I do.
That's probably for the best.
Oh.
I'm sure there are a lot of folks tuning in every single day that interact on the text line that are diehard OU football fans that wish they could forget what happened on October 8th, 2022.
Would you like to relitigate what happened on October 8th, 2022?
On October 8th, 2022, we got the Davis Bevel experience in Dallas, Texas.
Okay, cool. Yep.
Yes.
Enough said.
And it was there and then that the OU staff made the decision that we will never be shorthanded at the quarterback position again. We will do everything in our power to avoid anything like that ever once again manifesting at the University of Oklahoma as long as we are here. So that is the reason that they decided to double up in the 2024 class, bringing in Michael Hawkins and Brendan Zerbrug, who has obviously since transferred to Utah. And here's how you have to think about this. Let's say that John Mateer is one and done at Oklahoma. Let's say he plays well enough that he is off to the NFL after the 2025 season. If that is the case, and nobody expects Cole Gonzalez at Oklahoma longer than a year. He's a true senior. He can redshirt this year. He can go start somewhere in 2026, and that's what everybody kind of feels like is going to happen. He's here for a year as a detour along the way. And so with the assumption that Cole Gonzalez only spends 1 year at Oklahoma before transferring to try and play somewhere with his last year of college eligibility, if John Mateer is one and done, at this time next year you have 2 scholarship quarterbacks. Michael Hawkins, Jet New. That's it.
Yep,
Oklahoma would like to have minimum 4. Minimum 4. And so if you're taking 2 quarterbacks in the 2026 class, there's your 4. Presumably. Now, that says nothing of what might happen if, for whatever reason, Michael Hawkins decides to get out of Dodge. Or Jet New looks at the quarterback room and says, you know what, it's going to take me way too long to get on the field here. I'm going to look elsewhere. The overarching point here is that you can no longer assume that year to year your quarterback room is not going to undergo turnover that you would not have anticipated based on the circumstances previously before transfers in college football were unrestricted. And so this is OU's way of saying we're going to make absolutely certain we have at minimum 4 scholarship quarterbacks every single year. That's why you go after a guy like Bo Bentley. And moreover, the reason you go after a guy like Bo Bentley specifically is because he is a diehard, lifelong Oklahoma fan. And you already have a guy in Jaden O'Neal who's 1,000% 10 toes down for your program. And so if you don't have to worry about him backing off his commitment, and you have a strong sense, as I do and as many do, that Bo Bentley's going to be willing to come to Oklahoma regardless and compete and try to make something of himself in the Crimson and Cream because he's longed to wear that uniform as long as he's been alive, then that's a pretty perfect scenario, especially because you have 2 guys at that point in O'Neal and Bentley that could absolutely be top 100 players in the 26th cycle. O'Neal already is. Bentley's going to be in that conversation.
And to that point, I think you've gone after the right guy. Especially if you're bringing a guy that you think probably isn't a starting quarterback in the first 2 years or so, given what you have ahead of him. Yeah, you're going to want a guy for a depth piece who really wants to be there, and not somebody that's going to put something on practice tape or hope to put something on practice tape that gets him somewhere else where he can have a better opportunity. I think that's a good way to go about it.
One final text here from Denver in Indiana before we hit a break. I have started listening to KREF and OU fans. I'm a negative person, but this is a miserable fan base. Sheesh. My goodness, so much negativity. Take some good news. Amen to that, Denver. Let's all try and be positive. Coming up next, let's hit a quick break. We'll come back here on Locked In. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Stay here.
Hornsdown Apple Pie Liquor is not your grandma's apple pie unless your grandma was a moonshiner with a PhD in flavor. This all-natural, 6-time distilled spirit is sure to light up any party, tailgate, or special occasion. Whether toasting a touchdown or yelling at the umps because Spike was safe, Hornsdown Apple Pie is the perfect drink for celebrating the highs and lows of life in Oklahoma. Hornsdown celebrates all of you who cheer from the berm, tailgate, on Lindsay Street, and wreak havoc on social media. You can find our red bottle at your local liquor store or search for your closest location at drinkhornsdown.com.
Agents at Allison Insurance, featuring 70-plus years of combined insurance business experience. They're able to help clients avoid mistakes when purchasing individual or group health insurance. Call Allison Insurance at 800-580-5587 or 745-2968. They are the experts.
Tired of your current living situation? Now is the best time to make a move. Interest rates are dropping and Home Creations is offering the best financing around with rates as low as 3.625%. This will save you hundreds per month on your brand new Home Creations home. Live like a champion today by calling Holly at 405-364-9999 for full details.
364-9999 means Home Creations.
APR 6.508%.
Don't miss out on OKC's hottest entertainment at the Showplace Theater with acts like Gladys Knight, February 28th. 38 Special, March 7th. Bonnie Raitt, March 15th. And Chicago, March 28th. Riverwind is OKC's favorite casino experience.
At Confidence Ford of Norman, we believe in living up to our name. Our commitment to confidence is in everything we do. Whether you're searching for the perfect vehicle from our extensive selection of new Ford models or pre-owned cars, our dedicated team will help you every step of the way. Because with us, you're family. We're conveniently located at 825 North Interstate Drive. Confidence Ford of Norman, a Cavender Auto family dealership, where confidence is Cavender.
Hey Sooner sports fans, this is Faith Torres. and Danae Fletcher from the 6-time national champions Oklahoma women's gymnastics team.
We've had a great start to our first season in the SEC.
With only 4 meets, including Florida and Michigan, you won't want to miss any of the action.
Get your tickets at Soonersports.com and become a member of Team 10 to support OU Women's Gym and receive unique experiences and special access to the team.
Team 10 supports our team above and beyond anything I could have ever dreamed. Go to Soonersports.com and become a member of Team 10 today. Boomer!
Ready for some pickleball fun? Join us at the Y-Fac for pickleball every Tuesday from 8 to 11 a.m. and Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. Grab your friends and hit the courts for a lively morning or evening game. If water fitness is your pleasure, Aqua Zuma classes are every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Go online at yfac.com to learn more about day passes and memberships.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I'm Ben Affleck, and I want to thank you for joining me and supporting Paralyzed Veterans of America.
I joined the Navy to serve my country. While parachuting with my platoon, my parachute didn't open, and I broke my neck.
Thanks to PVA, paralyzed veterans are getting specialized medical care and treatments, the jobs they want, and the accessible vehicles and homes they need.
I just don't think my family would be as happy as they are without the support that I received from Paralyzed Veterans of America.
Learn more at pva.org.
Bobby and BH chimed in on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line 405-651-3439 and said, "This place on the ref is turning into an audible message board. Sooner Nation needs to stop being so triggered on every bit of news. LOL." Yeah, people, Oklahoma just landed one of the best wide receiver prospects in the entire 2026 class. It is okay to be happy. It is perfectly okay to be happy. And by the way, for those of you that aren't familiar with Daniel Odom's game, there were some people asking for height, weight, play style, all that good stuff. Daniel Odom from St. John Bosco High School in California, listed at 6'1", 178. I'm going to just go ahead and read you his scouting report from my good friend Greg Biggins, who is a national recruiting analyst at 24/7 Sports. He says this of Daniel Odom's game: has all the physical tools to be a dominant outside receiver at the college level. Good size wideout, pushing 6'2", 190 pounds, and plays a physical game. Quick off the line and very good releases. Can beat press and uses his body well to create separation. Strong kid who can bully opposing corners and picks up a lot of yards after contact. Shows good top-end speed and can routinely get behind a defense. Strong hands, dominant in the air, and catches the ball well through contact. Really nice all-around game, and has a high ceiling with the talent to play at the high Power 4 level. How's that sound to you, Grayson Singleton?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good to me. I'll take it.
Interested in some of the other schools that were courting Daniel Odom's services? Mention the programs that were in his top 6, Washington, Texas, Tennessee, Oregon, and Miami. He also held offers from Michigan, from Georgia, from Arizona State, from Florida State, from Ole Miss, and many others. Texas A&M, another school that was in the running for Daniel Odom. What'd you give me that look for?
What are we doing here? I get being I get trying to brace yourself in case he decommits and goes somewhere else. I get that because that's the nature of the game. Y'all over here, this is a good player. You can always tell how good a player is, and this translates to other parts of life too. You can always tell how valuable somebody is by who's going after them. If the other people going after him were a bunch of FCS schools, he could be like, okay, well, it sounds like he might be a good depth piece or whatnot. I heard Florida State, I heard Georgia, I heard Texas, I heard Tennessee, I heard Oregon. Duke can play. Duke can play. If that's who else is going after him. Be a little bit more positive, people.
I knew we were going to get one of these texts. I was just interested which Odom it was going to be. Drew from Flower Mound asked, is he related to Lamar Odom? Which, with him being from Cali, I guess that makes more sense than asking, is he related to Brian Odom? But needless to say, you get a new commit or even just a target with a last name that people vaguely recognize or associate with another prominent athlete or celebrity, you're always going to get the, are they related text? I got to start keeping track of some hilarious examples of that.
Every time somebody brings up Lamar Odom, I think of that Stephen A. Smith quote, but he was on crack.
What was the quote? What did he say?
About Phil Jackson. He said it's like his best decision was signing Lamar Odom, and then he goes on that, he was on crack. I'll pull it up. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, okay, yes.
Okay,
yes,
okay.
I remember this
I was about to say,
who was on crack?
Yes, I was like, do I need to pull this soundbite up?
Oh, Hawaiian Sooner says, hey, Grayson, Kennesaw State's a powerhouse.
I have no idea how to respond to that. You know what? Hey, I'll tell you what, though, Hawaiian Sooner. Maybe Kennesaw State is a powerhouse developmental league for Oklahoma.
Michael and Marlo with a decent question here. I would call it decent. I don't know that I would call it a great question. It's a decent question. Parker, in the last 3 years, how many guys that have committed this early actually signed with the program? Well, let's go down the list here. It is January. He is, for all intents and purposes, 10 months away from National Signing Day. So he is signing 10 months before signing day. The guys that committed to Oklahoma prior to this juncture on the calendar in the 2025 cycle were Elijah Thomas, Marcus James, Trinae Washington, Alex Shield Knight, Noah Hollenbeck. So 5 out of your 18 committed before this point on the calendar. You go back to the 2024 class, the guys that committed before this juncture, well, shoot, there weren't any. There were none. Earliest committed to that class was Jeremiah Newcomb in March of 2023. I forgot. That's right. That was Oklahoma got started really, really late in that class. And then in the 2023 recruiting cycle, there were 3 players. Joshua Bates, Eric McCarty, and good old Jackson Arnold. So, that right there goes to show you, like, it's not that far out from signing day that you almost take it as a given that he's going to decommit and reopen his recruitment at some point because he's a rising senior. It's a different conversation if, for example, you have Zane Rowe committing at the spring game last spring as a freshman in high school. Obviously, I mean, that's forever. That's 2.5 years from signing day. The odds you can hang on to that guy all the way till signing day at that point are minimal. And Zane Rowe has since decommitted. Jonathan Hatton committed to Oklahoma all the way back in October of 2023 at the beginning of his sophomore year of high school. The odds they were going to hang on to him until signing day, minimal. He has since decommitted, although astute OU fans will have noticed that via Twitter this morning, Oklahoma did go make an in-home visit.
I was just about
with
to
Jonathan Hatton.
Just about to ask you about that.
So they're trying to reel him back in. Reformed Sooner asked, Grayson, are you related to Bobby Grayson, who played wideout for Barry Switzer? There you go. That's what I'm saying.
Cannot say that I am.
But anyway, Jonathan Hatton is a guy that, again, Oklahoma's still trying to do their best to get back in with. We talked about Caden Jones yesterday. I'd expect him to be one of the running back takes in the 2026 class. This feels like another 2-back class. Last year was a 1-back class for DeMarco Murray because the depth was already there. You're going to have to get ready to replace at least a couple guys here before long, and so I expect 2 takes at running back in 2026. Oh, you would love it if those 2 were Jonathan Hatton and Caden Jones. Now, I really don't know how I feel about Jonathan Hatton as a prospect. Here's what I mean by that. He is undeniably very talented, and he is well ahead of the developmental curve. He already looks like a P4 back and then some. He looks like a college student. He does not look like a high school junior. But having watched him in person on multiple occasions these last couple of years, I can't help but wonder, how much better can he get? You know, like, he's a good player.
How close to his ceiling is he?
Exactly. Is he maxed out? This is a fair concern with a lot of really good high school football players. A great example that everybody everybody down in the Sunshine State was talking about probably 3 years ago now when he was getting ready to kick off his senior year, was Brandon Inniss, a former Oklahoma wide receiver commit who wound up signing to Ohio State. He has yet to do a whole heck of a lot at the collegiate level. Now, he was a 5-star prospect because at the prep level, he was awesome. Really, really good. Dominant. But the prevailing concern with Brandon Inniss was how much better can he get once he gets to the college level? And you haven't seen a ton of improvement in his game, whereas it may be far more worth it in some coaches' estimation to take a chance on a 3-star guy that could be a little bit underdeveloped and hasn't produced quite as much at the high school level, but you know he's got much more margin between where he is right now and that ceiling than somebody that is much more dominant at the high school level but is starting to already hit that ceiling.
Especially when you say he already looks like a college player too. Maybe his body doesn't have as much developing left to do, so now you're talking about maxing that out too. But also the position matters here too. And I hate to go here because I hated what the NFL has done to running backs, but he is a running back. And the shelf life for running backs is usually a little bit shorter than it is for most positions. So yeah, I share that sentiment. That's an interesting take. The Inniss thing is wild. The thing to keep in mind about Inniss too is that he did go to Ohio State, which is the modern day wide receiver U.
Yep.
That or LSU.
Yep.
So you do have that. I mean, Emeka Buka is about to get drafted in the first round, and he never was the best receiver on his team. Just think about that.
And where you get a really, really special, well, I shouldn't say a prodigy at wide receiver, but where you get even generational potential is where you see one of those rare guys that is dominant at the high school level, but that very obviously has room to get so much better in his game. Jeremiah Smith is a phenomenal example of this. You could watch him in high school and conclude, okay, not only is that good awesome now, he's going to keep getting more and more awesome in college and the pros. And like, that's a dude that it wouldn't shock you if he's in the NFL Hall of Fame one day. Oklahoma has one of those guys right now, though, in Elijah Thomas.
Elijah Thomas, yeah.
Yep. Elijah Thomas, to me, that is the closest thing to an absolute can't-miss prospect that Oklahoma has in the 2025 cycle.
But you bring up Jeremiah Smith, and that's a very interesting point. How much better can Jeremiah Smith get in college? Because he's already better than everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the fact that he's really, really good. Look at his body. He looks like an NFL wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Like this doesn't look like this is not your normal freshman wide receiver. So I do think that kind of comes into play with him too. This is an interesting, going back to what we were talking about in the first segment, Sooner James in Wisconsin. Guys, we are like damaged foster kids. Did you read this text already, Parker?
I did not read this text already.
Guys, we are like damaged foster kids. Daddy Bob loved us. That's the last time I'm going to say that. Loved us like no other, but retired. Then Muleshoe went out for milk at midnight and never came back. And now BV doesn't keep enough food in the fridge and struggling to hold down a job. I love this. We just want to be loved again. How about a star or two?
There was a lot.
That's a lot there.
There was a lot of thought that went into that parallel.
Are you unloading your own childhood trauma, Sooner James in Wisconsin?
Sooner James, yeah, no, forget a star or two. Give him 3 stars. Well done, Sooner James. I commend you for that text. 1-star Chonky Chuck is back. Haven't heard from him in forever.
What's up, buddy? Where you been?
He says, what's up, my gentlemen? I haven't interacted in a while, so it's good to hear you guys again. Glad to see that the text line is still fickle and doesn't believe in positivity. Yeah, you haven't missed much.
Well,
haven't missed much, Chonky Chuck.
I guess Sooner James just told you why the text line doesn't believe in positivity, because Daddy didn't come back with the milk. He said it, not me.
We're moving on. A 405 listener says, relevant to the whole Jonathan Hatton conversation, this is a good point. Adrian Peterson looked like a college player in high school. Yeah, and you'll see plenty of guys who do that look like college players in high school. The difference with Adrian Peterson, though, is not only was he huge, not only was he incredibly physical, not only was he just a very intelligent runner, and patient when he needed to be, but he was fast. I mean, game-breaking speed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made Adrian Peterson different, was the sheer size, the physique, everything that he was as a physical specimen, you see from time to time in running backs, minus the speed, right? You do not see that type of speed in that type of running back typically, and that's what made Adrian Peterson a generational type of prospect. With Jonathan Hatton, he doesn't have that game-breaking speed. He's got he's got decent speed. It's not Adrian Peterson speed. So, I don't really know where I stand on Jonathan Hatton, man. Good player. I don't know how much better he's going to get. Like, let's just say it's him and Caden Jones in Oklahoma's running back class in the 2026 cycle. I would probably bet on Caden Jones outperforming Jonathan Hatton.
And my question was going to be, so you're higher on Caden Jones than you are Jonathan Hatton?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Jay in Tulsa says, Jeremiah Smith made people forget about Ryan Williams as far as freshman receivers go. That's how good Smith is.
Okay.
Yeah, you remember when Ryan Williams was like the toast of college football for a month and a half?
I'm not going to lie to you, though. Ryan Williams may have still had the play of the year.
Oh, he did. There's no question about that. And he's still unbelievable, and he's still going to be a first-round NFL draft pick.
Yes.
But Jeremiah Smith, man.
That's a dude.
Yeah, NFL Hall of Fame potential. As long as injuries don't get in his way and off-field stuff doesn't get in his way, Hall of Fame potential. Josh from Moore says, gotta say, I'm enjoying Grayson's takes so far. Glad he has joined you in the afternoon, Parker.
Love you, buddy.
Some love.
Appreciate it.
From Josh and Moore. Let's get a couple more in before we hit a break here. Glenn from Nashville says, to those who are saying it's a given that another program will money whip Odom into decommitting, I have two words. Michael Fasusi. Great point, Glenn.
Fair point.
It's not about money for everybody. I would say it's about money for most. It's not about money for everybody. And again, that relationship factor is, I think, why there should be confidence that Oklahoma can hang on to Daniel Odom's commitment, because he is buddies with Jaden O'Neal. And those two do want to play together. And they're going to get the chance to play together as of right now at Oklahoma. So unless you were to screw things up with Jaden O'Neal, then it seems pretty secure as far as the whole Daniel Odom conversation is going. And I'll say this, Grayson. Emmett Jones is going to have to say no to somebody. That juncture will come. And it's come in each of the first two cycles that he's navigated as Oklahoma's wide receivers coach. Even when he was sitting there in July of 2023 with 5 commits in the 2024 cycle, there were still at least 2 wide receivers that I know of that were beaten down the door trying to get a spot at Oklahoma. And same thing last cycle. Oklahoma ends up with 5 committed once again by, November?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they had to tell a couple of those kids to go find somewhere else. And so this is going to be another impressive haul for Emmett Jones, regardless of who ultimately comprises it. Daniel Odom is not somebody that I would have projected into the class as recently as like this morning, right? If you asked me to put out a mock class this morning of everybody that I thought would wind up signing with Oklahoma, Daniel Odom probably wouldn't have been on that list. At wide receiver, I probably would have gone Alger Miles, Mason James, and maybe like a Davian Gross. But if you're taking Daniel Odom, at least one of those guys goes out the window in all likelihood.
And we talked about Mason James yesterday.
Mm-hmm. And so Oklahoma's going to be just fine at receiver. Whether or not Daniel Odom sticks or not, don't think you're going to have to worry about that. With as well as Emmett Jones has gone about building these relationships and casting a broad net in the 26 class at wide receiver. Okay, we're overdue for a timeout. Let's hit one here on the ref. Parker Thune, Grayson Singleton here with you this hour of the show, brought to you by Dorsey Jones Buick GMC in El Reno. And, of course, keep filling it up on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line 405-651-3439. We'll be right back. Keep it here.
Horns Down Apple Pie Liquor is not your grandma's apple pie unless your grandma was a moonshiner with a PhD in flavor. This all-natural 6-time distilled spirit is sure to light up any party, tailgate, or special occasion. Whether toasting a touchdown or yelling at the Yums because Spike was safe, Horns Down Apple Pie is the perfect drink for celebrating the highs and lows of life in Oklahoma. Horns Down celebrates all of you who cheer from the berm, tailgate, on Lindsay Streak, and wreak havoc on social media. You can find our red bottle at your local liquor store or search for your closest location at drinkhornsdown.com.
They also do corporate special orders for you and your company. Call them today, 405-325-6716, or visit theougolfclub.com for more information.
What is a good neighbor? It's someone nearby who helps make your life a little easier. I'm State Farm Agent Julia Chu, and my team and I take time to understand your insurance and financial needs. So whether you're preparing for retirement or in need of auto, home, life, or business insurance, get the kind of help you'd expect from a good neighbor. Visit the Julia Chu Agency or call 329-3311. Come visit at our new location, 701 Wall Street, Norman.
What's up, Ref Army? It's Dusty Dvorak, and I'm back. I'm excited to be back with the Ref and cannot wait to help bring the home of Sooner fans the best Sooner coverage. Catch me every Tuesday and Wednesday during the 10 a.m. hour of The Plank Show as I cut it up with Plank and Josh about everything in the world of Sooner and college football. That's every Tuesday and Wednesday on The Plank Show, and there's only one place to hear it. The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Download the KRF app today to listen from anywhere.
This is Peggy Doviak, and I opened DM Wealth Management because of a horrible experience that my mother had with a stockbroker. I wanted to give people an alternative, a place they could go to understand their money, to know why investment decisions were made the way they were, and to create a financial plan that would help them meet their goals. Most of all, I wanted to help them plan their prosperity. Call me at 405-329-8884 or dmwealth.com.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
More than 600,000 Oklahomans have disabilities. We can't afford to leave great employees behind just because they do things differently.
Who we are and what we accomplish
are much more important.
Hire an Oklahoman with a disability and gain dependability, commitment, and lower turnover. Reach out. Oklahoma Rehabilitation Services, okdrs.gov, 1-800-845-8476.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Oh no, folks. Bill Belichick is meddling in Oklahoma's business. It's probably not the news you want to hear, is it?
I mean,
Bill Belichick in North Carolina have extended an offer to Oklahoma offensive line commit Will Conroy as of today. Bill Belichick apparently visited Will Conroy at IMG Academy. Extended him an offer in person. Will Conroy put the offer out about an hour ago. You have to worry about the Tar Heels now on the recruiting trail? How many OU North Carolina battles on the recruiting trail have there been in recent memory? I can think of two. Caden Helms' final two were Oklahoma and UNC. And James Nesta had OU, UNC, and Miami in his final 3. I think that's it. But obviously, the game has changed now that Bill Belichick is the head coach at North Carolina. And I saw today ESPN put out their way too early college football playoff predictions for 2025. North Carolina is in the field as the 11 seed. At large, mind you.
Penn State's the national champion, by the way.
I did see that. Were there 3 ACC teams in that field?
Let me go back and look at it again.
Because Louisville was in their field.
Yeah.
They had Utah as the number 3 seed as well. I know that's not ACC, but
coming out of the Big 12.
North Carolina is already highly regarded enough by the folks at ESPN that we're predicting them into the college football playoff in year 1 of Bill Belichick's tenure. Now, I will say this. I'm not putting anything beyond Bill Belichick. He is right there with Nick Saban, the greatest football coaches of this generation, probably of several generations to come, because it's going to be really, really difficult for anybody to match what Belichick did with the Patriots and what Nick Saban did at the University of Alabama. But really, like, this is where we're at with North Carolina. What was their final record? I don't even remember. It wasn't good enough for them not to push Mac Brown out the door. They win like 7 games. I know they lost in I think it was the Fenway Bowl to UConn. Former OU quarterback Nick Evers and the UConn Huskies. They won like 7, 8 games. And I think we all have borne witness to this. We saw it with Oklahoma. I think you saw it with Colorado last year as well. You can bring in a big-time head coach, and you can have a whole lot of pomp and circumstance surrounding your program and start recruiting really well and land some big-time transfers, but it's still going to take time. And if it doesn't take time, if you can fix everything and have your team competing for a college football playoff berth in year 1, generally it's more of a flash in the pan than anything sustainable. A great recent example of this is Sonny Dykes in his first year at TCU. Where has TCU been since they made a run to the national championship game in 2022? What have they done?
Not jack.
Correct.
They've been in the cellar in the Big 12.
Correct. So, again, I think if you're building it the right way, it's going to take time. I think it'll take time for Bill Belichick. He may prove me wrong. He is Bill Belichick. But, man, I just find it very, very hard to believe that North Carolina is going to be in that conversation. And right now, at least from a recruiting standpoint, their big pitch is, of course, we have Bill Belichick as our head coach. I'm not really sure yet. I mean, that's been the case for a month and a half. Not really sure how far that's going to take them on the recruiting trail. I guess we'll have kind of a case study, if you will, with Will Conroy, because North Carolina is now working to flip the 3-star Oklahoma commit. Let's hit the YouTube chat. How about that? Jackson McElwee on the chat said, Parker called it about Daniel Odom being the next surprise commit. Okay, I didn't really call it. I did mention yesterday. Shoot, I don't really know who the next commit would be, but I did say these words. This is the time of year where you almost expect a surprise out of nowhere.
You did say that.
And lo and behold,
well done by you.
I rattled off like 5 or 6 names. Daniel Odom was one of them. So I wouldn't say I called it, but there you go, folks. There's your surprise. There's your late January, early February surprise. Daniel Odom is an Oklahoma Sooner.
I meant to ask you this in the first segment, and we didn't get around to it. Why is this such a surprise to you?
As far as like just that it happened, or like when it happened?
That it happened.
I'm not surprised that it happened. I'm more surprised that it happened when it did.
Okay.
Because the relationship with Jaden O'Neal is there. I mean, there was already heavy interest on Daniel Odom's part in Oklahoma because he had the Sooners in his top 6. So the fact that he committed to Oklahoma is not the surprising aspect of this. The surprising aspect of this is that it happened on January 28th, 3 days after he was on campus. And so now can he make it stick? As I said at the end of the last segment, whether he sticks or not, I think Oklahoma's going to have a really strong receiver haul in the 26 class. But Daniel Odom is a heck of a way to kick things off. By the way, Robert in the YouTube chat said, at Senior Bowl practice, Billy Bowman just made a great interception. Good for Billy. I'm pretty sure, is he OU's only representative at the Senior Bowl? I know OU has Luke Elzinga and Ethan Downs at the Shrine Bowl.
And I guess Danny didn't go to the Sugar Bowl. I mean the Sugar Bowl, the Senior Bowl.
No, I don't believe so. At least I didn't see him. I didn't see his measurables released yesterday.
Right.
So they were releasing measurables for all the players that were participating in the Senior Bowl. I didn't see Danny Stutzman listed. So I guess Billy Bowman is their only representative, and glad to hear he's doing well. Topher B says, to answer your question, and this was a question that I believe was posed by Drake to the YouTube chat. Who do you want to see as OU's defensive play caller in 2025? He said, I would like Jonathan Patke or Travis Williams over the Arkansas State DC coming. Now, Jonathan Patke is currently the defensive coordinator at Duke. Travis Williams is the defensive coordinator at Arkansas. So you need a frame of reference for those two names. There you go. But it feels like this is going to be Nate Dreiling. Grayson. That's the direction that it seems this is headed. I'm Team Brian Odom. I've said that. I would love to see Oklahoma go hire Brian Odom. Think what he's done with linebackers during his previous stint at Oklahoma, the impact of which you're still feeling with his recruits like Kobe McKenzie and Kip Lewis being cornerstones in this room. I think especially given his familiarity with the institution, his loyalty to the institution as a former OU player himself, and all that he has done over the years, recruiting and developing some of the best linebackers that have seen the field for Oklahoma in the last decade, yeah, give me Brian Odom. But seems like it's going to be Nate Dreiling, which is very much a hire that's cut from the same cloth as the Zach Alley hire. Zach Alley got to Oklahoma. He'd only been a coordinator for, 3 years? 1 year at Louisiana Monroe, 2 at Jacksonville State. Nate Dreiling, I guess, has only been a coordinator in title for 2 years because he was New Mexico State's defensive coordinator from 22 to 23. Those were a couple of really successful New Mexico State teams.
Correct.
By the way.
Yeah.
The 2023 New Mexico State Aggies won 10 games, as a matter of fact. And then he was hired by Utah State to be their defensive coordinator, but ended up being their interim head coach in the 2024 season. So it's been a fast learning process for him, getting up to speed. But much as Alley felt like a little bit of a shot in the dark, taking a calculated risk with a guy that you felt was ready for the big time but hadn't proven it yet, hadn't had the chance to prove it yet, you bring in Nate Dreiling, it kind of feels like you're going down that same route.
Does that make you comfortable and confident, or I know he's not your preferred choice. You and I talked about this. Is there something that he has done that makes you see the upside here? Because there was a lot of upside with Zach Alley. Obviously, he was pulled away by West Virginia. Is there upside here with Dreiling?
Oh, absolutely. I certainly think there is. And I'm fine with the Dreiling hire, to be honest. I don't have beef with the Dreiling hire, especially with the knowledge that it's going to be BV calling the defense.
Which I still have my mixed feelings about.
Yes, no doubt. Okay, can we stop? Let's not go here, recruiting boomer, who sent a text on the text line and said, Brian Odom's loyalty didn't go too deep, Parker. Followed that, you-know-what, out west. Brian Odom wasn't retained at the University of Oklahoma. If he had been, he wasn't going anywhere. Brian Odom and Jamar Cain were two guys that would have loved to stay at Oklahoma. They were not given the opportunity to. And so they went where they knew they had a job, which was USC. And if Lincoln Riley did nothing else honorable in that whole process, one thing he did do is promise all of his assistants at Oklahoma that he had a job for them at USC if they wanted to make the move with him. And so Jamar Cain had that safety net. Brian Odom had that safety net. They both took advantage of it. Neither of them were there for very long. Jamar Cain was on staff at USC for like a week and a half.
Yeah.
And they got the LSU job. Mm-hmm. And he was out because he didn't want any part of it. Brian Odom stuck around because, again, You go where you have security. You go where you have employment. You go where you're going to get a check every month. And that was USC. Gunny says, that was a stupid take. Would he stay here with no job? Yes, thank you, Gunny. Thank you for helping me handle that. I guess we're out of time. That's all for Locked In here on a Tuesday. Parker Thune, Grayson Singleton. We will be back same time, same place tomorrow, 2 p.m. here on The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Now don't go anywhere because Tyler McComas and Teddy Lehman have the rush coming up next. Keep it here.